This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Kathleen Maloney. Heavy voter turnout for caucuses and primaries in 5 states this Super Saturday as the race for the White House gets wilder. Fox's Jill Nato joining us live.
Senator Ted Cruz has walked away with the Kansas caucuses, soundly beating Donald Trump. But Trump looks to have the early lead in the Kentucky caucus. And during a campaign stop in Florida, Trump tells supporters he's ready to take on Democratic presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton.
You watch these dishonest pundits. Well, Trump can't win the general election. We will beat her so badly, folks. We will beat her so badly.
No numbers in yet for the Democrats. Also ahead tonight are the results of the Nebraska caucuses and the Louisiana primary. A total of 155 Republican and 109 Democratic delegates are up for grabs. Jill Nato, Fox News.
Thanks, Jill. At this point, Ted Cruz is also ahead in Maine. Fox News Radio's Bill Marcus with a live report.
Kathleen, Texas Senator Ted Cruz winning over York County Republicans by 50 votes. Donald Trump coming in second. Ohio Governor John Kasich a distant third. Florida Senator Marco Rubio even a more distant fourth. Over 2,000 secret ballots cast, a two-thirds increase over 2012. York County was very strong 4 years ago for Ron Paul. Observers crediting millennials, constitutionalists, and evangelicals with Cruz's win. Kathleen?
Thanks, Bill. Ted Cruz, another winner, this time the straw poll at the Conservative Political Action Conference. Rubio coming in second, Donald Trump third. He did skip the event. In the Democratic race, Hillary Clinton is campaigning in Michigan, while Bernie Sanders is on the trail in Ohio. They will be meeting for a debate in Flint, Michigan tomorrow night, and for a Fox town hall in Detroit Monday. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Whitfield Analysis. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, broadcasting live from NGC 1 here in southern Florida, and I want to thank you so very much for joining me here tonight. It's going to be a big show tonight. I can't say it's going to be that great of a show because we have some really depressing topics to discuss. And when I mean depressing, I mean depressing. But nevertheless, I'm hoping we can at least have a good show, even if it's not the most positive. The telephone number, if you would like to call and leave a voicemail, 941-564-5805. Again, that number is 941-564-5805. You can follow me on Twitter at SamW_NGC, hashtag WA Radio Show. You can go to our website at thesamwhitfield.com, and you can connect with me on Facebook. Be sure to like the Whitfield Analysis Facebook page for all your Whitfield Analysis needs. Also be sure to download the free app on the App Store, the Sam Whitfield app. So, I want to thank you all for listening here tonight. And we have a lot to cover. As I said, folks, tonight's show is not necessarily going to be a positive show. And I hate to say that because I always like to try and market myself as the positive guy in conservative media. I always like to try to take an optimistic approach to things. I always like to try to say that things are going to be better and analyze what we can do to improve our situation. I always try and take the high road and the positive road, where ever I can. But ladies and gentlemen, it's become quite apparent that the Republican Party and the conservative movement is so splintered now that I'm not sure how we're going to be able to win this election as conservatives. I've been mulling this over for the past 2 days, really, trying to think about how I'm going to say what I need to say and try and spin in a positive manner. But the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not so sure we can. I'm not so sure I can. I have to be brutally honest with you. At this point in the game, I'm not sure if the conservatives can win the election at all. I just have to be honest with you. I don't know if we can win in 2016. Now, do not misunderstand. I'm not saying I'm giving up quite yet, because I can already imagine that that's what some of you are thinking. Some of you are thinking, oh, well, Sam's throwing in the towel. He's giving up. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, I'm not giving up, but I am extremely uncertain of whether or not we'll be able to win. Because right now the party is, the Republican Party and the conservative movement as a larger sect is really splintered into 2 groups, maybe even 3. The first group is the pro-Trump group. These are the people who want to vote for Donald Trump and will vote for Donald Trump no matter if he runs as a Republican or an independent. They're Trump loyalists. And for the most part, as far as my social circle goes, most of the Trump supporters that I've encountered in my personal circles are down-to-earth people. They're folks like Paul Favolita, who has been a fan of the Whitfield Analysis for a couple of years now, and my friend Mary Benzie Zeta Whiskey from the DMZ. They're both Trump supporters, but they're both more humane and rational Trump supporters. But then we also have the less rational Trump supporters, the ones who scream and call people names and who are just downright bullies if you don't fall at the feet of Donald Trump and worship him. And this has become a problem because, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, we are at a crossroads. There seems to be an extreme radical element that likes Donald Trump to a fault, to the point where it's Trump or no one else. And these people are committed to Donald Trump winning the election, no matter if he's a Republican or if he runs third party. And I guarantee you, if Trump does run third party, a lot of the Trump supporters will go for Donald Trump instead of the candidate. And this is a problem. But I'll explain why it's a problem in just a sec. On the other extreme, you have the Never Trump movement. That hashtag has become a big thing on Twitter. the Never Trump movement has said that they will never vote for Trump, even if he's the winner in the general, even if he's the candidate in the general election. They'll never vote for him if he's the GOP nominee because they don't think he represents conservatism, and they think that he's going to pervert conservatism. And some of them don't think he can even win. And I have problems, to be honest, folks, with both of these thought processes. And I'm going to explain what my problem is. By the way, if you're in the Spreaker chat room, you can always chime in there and give your opinion. If you're listening to this live, you can always log on to Spreaker.com and give your opinion as well. Anyway, though, I want to start off with the Never Trump movement because these folks have been getting on my nerve a lot lately. Now, as I said, I'm not defending Trump. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I think he is doing more harm to the conservative ideology than good. But to say that he's absolutely going to ruin conservatism is just not true. I think he's doing harm, but I don't think he's going to do permanent damage. Let me explain. Okay, the Never Trump movement, starting off. They believe that Donald Trump is harming the Republican Party irreversibly. And they will not vote for Trump no matter what happens. The problem with this is going to be the same problem that we've had in the past, most notably in 2012. If Donald Trump wins the Republican nomination for the general election, and all of these Never Trumpers stay home and don't vote for Donald Trump, we're going to split the party and Hillary Clinton is going to win. Now, stop and think about that. If a major percentage of the conservative movement stays home and does not vote, Hillary Clinton will win the election, which means 4 more years of the exact same thing we've had under Barack Obama, if not worse. That means we're going to have another Clinton in the White House. That means we're probably going to have another criminal in the White House. She's under investigation by the FBI. And Hillary Clinton is one of the most corrupt politicians in American history. And by the Never Trump people staying home, we're going to split the vote and we're most likely going to get Hillary Clinton. Now, on the flip side, you have the only Trump people who are so convinced that Trump is the answer to our prayers that they really haven't done any research on his past statements, which are the antithesis of conservatism. Folks, Donald Trump is not a conservative. He is the farthest thing from it. He supported Nancy Pelosi before he was against Nancy Pelosi. He went to Hillary Clinton. He invited Bill and Hillary to his wedding. He contributed billions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation. Bill Clinton himself even said that Donald Trump has been a generous donor, so he can't figure out why he's running against Hillary now. This is the same candidate who said that he thought 9/11 might have been an inside job at a recent debate. That should have been proof enough that he wasn't conservative. And he doesn't act conservative culturally either. He has had multiple affairs on his wife. He's not a man. I believe that he is not a man of faith. He hasn't demonstrated that to me, at least, but I don't know. I could be wrong. That's between him and God. He's bankrupted 4 casinos, which, as Marco Rubio pointed out about a week or two ago, and we played this clip on this program, bankrupting a casino is hard to do, extremely hard to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am by no means defending Trump. However, what I can't figure out is how not voting for Trump, if he wins the general election, benefits us. Because as I said, if Republicans don't vote for Trump in the general, if he's the nominee, then we will have Hillary Clinton for sure. Ben Shapiro over at dailywire.com, he's the editor-in-chief over there. In his podcast this week, he explained the Never Trump movement pretty well, and he expresses the frustration with Donald Trump supporters far better than I can, and he really explains why Donald Trump is a poor choice for conservatism and how he doesn't represent conservatism. I want to play various segments of Mr. Shapiro's analysis of Donald Trump, but then I kind of want to give counterpoints, counter-arguments to Mr. Shapiro's point, because I do believe it's important to take a diverse side on the Never Trump issue. Okay, cut number 1, go.
Now breaking out inside the Republican Party. And it's one on which I am pretty torn, one on which I have to say, I'm not torn on a lot of issues, typically, you may have noticed, but here's an issue on which I am seriously torn. I'm leaning toward one side. I'll tell you which one it is in a second. And that is this debate over the Never Trump movement, the group of people who say, we're never voting for Donald Trump, no matter what, we will not vote for Donald Trump, even in a general election. We're not going to vote for Donald Trump. We're just not going to do it. Right? Okay, so there are a bunch of arguments in favor and a bunch of arguments against. Let's start with some of the arguments in favor of Never Trump, in favor of we're never going to vote for Trump. So one of the arguments in favor of we're never going to vote for Donald Trump is that we're going to lose with Trump. We're just going to lose. There's no way to win with this guy. I think there is truth to this. I think the media have not begun to open up their guns on Trump. I think Trump is bringing in new voters, sure, but he's alienating a hell of a lot more voters than he's bringing in. And it's because Trump says things like this, for example. Clip 17, here's Donald Trump talking about, remember, we've talked about it all week, Donald Trump refusing to disown the KKK and then disavowing them the next day and all of this stuff, and then blaming his magically white-hooded earpiece, and he didn't hear properly, and his earwax was a member of the KKK, so it whispered bad messages to him and all the rest of it. Donald Trump was on MSNBC this morning still trying to walk this back, and here was Donald Trump ridiculously trying to walk this back. Here we go.
David Duke is a bad person who I disavowed on numerous occasions over the years. And the one question that was asked to me, I guess on CNN, he's having a great time, he talked about groups of people. And I don't like to disavow groups if I don't know who they are. I mean, you could have Federation of Jewish Philanthropies in groups. I don't know who the groups are. He's talking about disavowed groups. And that's what I was referring to. But I disavowed him. I disavowed him. I disavowed the KKK. I just did the Today Show, and it was the same thing. And I said, how many times do I have to disavow? Do you want me to do it again for the 12th time?
Well, I wanted it on the record on this show. Let me follow up, and then I'll open it up to the table.
Just to put it clear, I disavowed him in the past, and I disavow him now. And it was very clear that I disavowed, but the press doesn't want to go with it. They just love the story. And by the way, if you look at my Twitter, which took place just about the same time as that show, you'll see I disavowed right there, too.
Okay, so in answer to his question, how many times do I have to disavow? The answer is all the times. All of them. There is no 99% solution here. 100% of the time. It's such an easy call.
And this is one thing that I agree with Ben Shapiro completely on. The David Duke endorsement for Donald Trump was an absolute disaster, okay? No one I've talked to that I know of personally, even on the Trump bandwagon, thinks that the David Duke thing was wise. Okay, David Duke is the former Grand Wizard, I guess that's what they call him, of the KKK. He endorsed Donald Trump about 2 weeks ago, and when I heard about that, it made my skin crawl quite naturally. And at first there was, there was a lot of speculation. Well, did Donald Trump disavow him? There were differing reports that I read online. Some were saying that he did. Some of them were saying that he didn't. Some of them were saying that he was trying to decide whether or not to. And at the end of the day, I guess Trump did end up disavowing David Duke. The problem is, and I have to agree with Ben Shapiro on this, is as far as I can tell, the Trump campaign didn't make it quite clear enough. They kind of left room for speculation on whether or not he disavowed David Duke. And as Shapiro said, there's no 99% with something like that. You always have to disavow 100% and make it 100% of the time. Otherwise, your campaign is going to have a big problem. Okay, but see, David Duke isn't the only problem. I mean, he is a major problem, but now the other problem that crops up with David Duke appearing is now we have the KKK involved. We have, I've seen a couple of tweets on Twitter from Nazi skinheads, or I guess neo-Nazis. That's like the politically correct term for them, but skinheads, that's what we call neo-Nazis here in politically incorrect land. You have the KKK, you have the skinheads, and you have a couple other of kind of racist and otherwise just horrible individuals. They're now getting on the Trump bandwagon because of this, and Trump, as I've said before, he only feels the need to disavow these people 99% of the time. And I'm not even saying that all of this is Trump's fault, but the problem here is now that Trump has the KKK Grand Wizard endorsing him, as well as some skinhead leaders jumping on the bandwagon via Twitter, Donald Trump now has the uphill battle of the Democrats are going to be able to use that against him. And so this causes a very difficult election for him because now obviously he has that percentage of the population kind of pulling for him. And that's very frustrating because the racist conservative stereotype is something that I think in most cases is not true. Okay, the vast majority of conservatives, in fact, I would say all conservatives, all true conservatives, are not racist. They're not homophobic. They're not bigoted. Conservatives are some of the most tolerant people out there. And yet we've had this stereotype for the last 40 years by the leftist media that we're racist and we're homophobic and we're bigoted. And we've had to fight for the last 40 years to disprove that, stereotype. And now with the KKK Grand Wizard endorsing him and all of these neo-Nazi skinheads on Twitter jumping on the Trump bandwagon, yeah, they're kind of making it hard for that stereotype to go away and die like it should. And again, I'm not saying that Trump himself is responsible for this, but like or not, because of the KKK's endorsement, because of David Duke's involvement, Donald Trump is now tied to this perception, and as far as I know, he's only kind of fighting it with one hand tied behind his back, and this could be a serious problem for him. And with that unfortunate stereotype, ladies and gentlemen, the rest of conservatism suffers, because if Donald Trump is allowed to become the definition of conservatism, then we have that stereotype kind of justified as the norm for conservatism. Ben Shapiro is going to bring that up here in the next clip I'm about to play, which is a continuation of this one. And this is why this is one of the many reasons why Trump's presidency and Trump's campaign could be catastrophic for conservatism. Okay? Cut number 2, go. Or no, I'm sorry, cut number 3, go.
You disavow the white supremacist. Trump didn't do that. I told you yesterday the reason I think Trump didn't do that. Okay, so Trump is asked this and he says, well, I didn't know what groups Tapper was talking about. Maybe he was talking about Jewish philanthropies. Yes, I'm sure that Jake Tapper was talking about Jewish philanthropies. I'm sure that Jake Tapper was talking about Chai Lifeline. I'm sure that's what he was talking about. He was talking about the Israel Defense Fund. I'm positive that's what he was talking about. What stupidity. How dumb do you have to be to buy into that particular lie? I had this argument online with a friend of mine, Patrick Corielchi, this morning, and I really like Patrick a lot, but anybody who believes that Donald Trump didn't hear the questions did not watch that interview, because Donald Trump was repeating the questions back to Jake Tapper. In any case, that's argument number 1 in favor of never Trump. You get behind this guy, he's going to lose. And so regardless of whether I vote for him now or in a general, he's going to lose anyway. That's argument number 1. I think there's truth to it. I don't know that there's full truth to it. As I've said before, I don't do
Okay, the argument for never Trump, I do want to bring this up. The argument that Trump is never going to win anyway, look, I think that's false. If we were all if every single Republican were to go into the voting booth tomorrow, if every single registered Republican were to go in tomorrow and pull the lever for Trump against Hillary, if the election were tomorrow and every single conservative were to pull the lever for him, I think he would win against Hillary. I honestly would. Now, the reason why Trump isn't going to win against Hillary Clinton is because of all these Never Trump folks. They're going to be the ones who cause problems for Hillary. They're going to be the ones who basically make it so that Trump doesn't end up winning, and it's going to be a complete disaster, and we're going to be stuck with Hillary Clinton as president for sure.
The crystal ball gazing routine, and so I'm not going to say there's no chance Trump wins. I'm going to say I think it's unlikely that he wins. Okay, argument number 2 in favor of Never Trump. The second argument is we have to say no at some point, right? We have to say no at some point. Jonah Goldberg of National Review, he says, for far too long, Trump has benefited from the assumption that the non-Trump faction of the party will be reasonable and support the nominee. Such thinking paves the road to power for demagogues. And I think this is basically correct. I think this is a good argument. In other words, if the idea for the Republican Party is no matter who we nominate, you're going to have to vote for them because the alternative is always going to be worse, it's always going to be Bernie Sanders or Hillary, then we really don't have a say in the nominee, right? We don't. We just have a say in whether we vote for the worst, the least of the two bad options, right? That's how you end up with McCain and Romney and now Trump. This is how you end up with George W. Bush and Bob Dole and H.W. This is how you end up with all these people, is because we're constantly being told, well, you may not like Mitt Romney, but do you really want a second term of Barack Obama? And at a certain point, conservatives have to say no. They have to say, no, we're not going to accept the lesser of two evils. We're just not going to show up. And if you want to lose with your people, you lose with your people. But if you want to unify the party, you are going to have to do something for us. This, to me, seems like a better argument, right? The conservatives have to say no at some point. And that conservatives saying no is a defense of conservatism. This is an argument with which I agree. I think this is a good argument, right? You can't just keep saying to us, hold your nose and vote. Because if I'm just going to always hold my nose and vote, you can take my vote for granted. If you can take my vote for granted, you never have to give me what I want, which is an actual conservative candidate. And third argument, also a good argument, in favor of Never Trump. Victory before conservatism perverts conservatism. In other words, if all you care about is winning, you're going to end up embracing a lot of things that sully the name of conservatism and destroy conservatism. And here, I want to talk about Trump's argument. Trump's counter-argument is, I'm going to win. I'm broadening conservatism. I'm broadening the base of conservatism. Here's Donald Trump this morning suggesting that he's brought...
I want to go to Ben's argument there for a sec about preserving conservatism and how, you know, Trump doesn't represent conservatism and how at some point conservatives have to stand up against Trump. I brought this up a few minutes ago, and it pains me to say this, but Shapiro is wrong. I think he's partially right, but I think in this case, he's wrong. Okay? Yes, it's true. Trump isn't a conservative. Yes, it's true that we do need better candidates from him. Yes, it's true that conservatives are tired of being forced to choose the lesser between two evils. But here's the thing. 3 million conservatives sat out the election back in 2012. And Barack Obama still won. And then people like Ben Shapiro continued to bitch and complain about how bad things were under Barack Obama's second term, when clearly the anti-Romney folks didn't do anything to stop it. Yes, I agree. Trump is a far cry from what conservatism should be. yes, I agree that at some point we're going to need to step up and make sure that this does not happen. But I also want to remind folks, and I'm not saying this to get up on my high horse, but I'm just simply saying this as a truth. I was saying back in 2013, January 1st of 2013, on the Whitfield analysis, I remember saying that we have to start getting ready now for the 2016 election. We have to start vetting candidates now. We have to make sure that we get a true conservative in office. We have to make sure that we can't get any moderates or any potential converts, left-wing converts into the party. We need a strong conservative. So folks, I don't agree with anything that Ben Shapiro was saying in terms of that. At some point, conservatives do need to say no. We do need to take back the establishment from the GOP. We do need to take back the GOP from the establishment. And we do need to stand up for ourselves. But right in the middle of an election is not the year to do it. Because now we're going to let Hillary Clinton win because principle. Okay? Ben Shapiro, for those of you who might not know, although if you follow me, if you've followed my political career and you follow politics in general, you most likely know that Ben Shapiro was mentored by Andrew Breitbart. Ben Shapiro is Andrew Breitbart's protege in many ways. And I can guarantee you that, well, Breitbart would respect Shapiro's point of view. Breitbart would also not support Shapiro in boycotting Donald Trump. Okay? Andrew Breitbart, back in 2012, literally a month before he died, was speaking at CPAC, and the conservative movement was already starting to show signs of division and infighting back then. Breitbart, in literally a minute and 16 seconds, summed up everything I have been trying to say for the last 3 years about the 2016 election. The conservative movement must unify behind the behind the candidate, no matter who he is, because if not, we get stuck with the absolute worst of the worst as far as the left goes. Now, Breitbart died in March of 2012. Mitt Romney became the nominee, and lo and behold, Breitbart's famous last words to the public fell deaf on 3 million ears, because that's how many conservatives did not show up for the 2012 election. Therefore, we got stuck with 4 more years of Barack Obama. I want to play this for you real quick to remind you the stark differences between Shapiro and his mentor Breitbart. Cut number 5, go.
Unity speech. You want a unity speech? I'll give you a unity speech. I don't care who our candidate is, and I haven't since the beginning of this. I haven't. Ask not what the candidate can do for you. Ask what you can do for the candidate. And that's what the Tea Party is. We are there to confront them on behalf of our candidate. I will march behind whoever our candidate is, because if we don't, we lose. There are two paths. There are two paths. One is America, and the other one is Occupy. One is America, the other one is Occupy. They try to portray you in the worst possible light. And when I walk through CPAC, where I travel the United States to meet people in the Tea Party who care, black, white, gay, and straight, anyone that's willing to stand next to me to fight the progressive left, I will be in that bunker. And if you're not in that bunker because you're not satisfied with this candidate, more than shame on you, you're on the other side.
Counter that with what Shapiro said just a moment ago about Donald Trump.
I think it's unlikely that he wins. Okay, argument number 2 in favor of never Trump. The second argument is we have to say no at some point. Right? We have to say no at some point. Jonah Goldberg of National Review, he says, for far too long, Trump has benefited from the assumption that the non-Trump faction of the party will be reasonable and support the nominee. Such thinking paves the road to power for demagogues. And I think this is basically correct. I think this is a good argument. In other words, if the idea for the Republican Party is no matter who we nominate, you're going to have to vote for them because the alternative is always going to be worse, it's always going to be Bernie Sanders or Hillary, then we really don't have a say in the nominee. Right? We don't. We just have a say in whether we vote for the worst, the least of the two bad options, right? That's how you end up with McCain and Romney and now Trump. This is how you end up with George W. Bush and Bob Dole and H.W. This is how you end up with all these people, is because we're constantly being told, well, you may not like Mitt Romney, but do you really want a second term of Barack Obama? And at a certain point, conservatives have to say no. They have to say, no, we're not going to accept the lesser of two evils. We're just not going to show up. And if you want to lose with your people, you lose with your people. But if you want to unify the party, you are going to have to do something for us. This, to me, seems like a better argument.
One more time, I will play Breitbart's clip. Again, Andrew Breitbart was the man who mentored Ben Shapiro.
Unity speech. You want a unity speech? I'll give you a unity speech. I don't care who our candidate is, and I haven't since the beginning of this. I haven't. Ask not what the candidate can do for you. Ask what you can do for the candidate. And that's what the Tea Party is. We are there to confront them on behalf of our candidate. I will march behind whoever our candidate is, because if we don't, we lose. There are two paths. There are two paths. One is America, and the other one is Occupy. One is America, the other one is Occupy. They try to portray you in the worst possible light. And when I walk through CPAC, where I travel the United States to meet people in the Tea Party who care, black, white, gay, and straight, anyone that's willing to stand next to me to fight the progressive left, I will be in that bunker. And if you're not in that bunker because you're not satisfied with this candidate, more than shame on you, you're on the other side.
That, unfortunately, folks, is what the no Trump movement boils down to. They might not realize it, but the no Trump movement is basically saying, okay, yeah, we're just going to give up this election to Hillary Clinton because we hate Donald Trump so much that, yeah, we're just willing to surrender and give everything up to Hillary Clinton. Like or not, folks, that's what you're doing if you're joining the Never Trump movement. Believe me, up until the general election, I will do everything in my power to make sure that Trump does not get the nomination. But if he gets the general nomination, you can bet your ass that I'm going to do everything I can to support him, because he may be bad, but Hillary is worse, and we cannot afford 12 years of liberalism, which is what we're headed for if Hillary wins the election. I'll be right back for the second segment. You're listening to the Whitfield Analysis.
Unity speech